So, I've already made a video reacting to my awful championship predictions. With the Premier League season ending yesterday, I think now would be a very appropriate time to see how well did I do with the Premier League table. Yesterday, it was undoubtedly a dramatic end to the season, when Manchester City come from 2 goals down to win 3-2 to win their 4th title in 5, stopping Liverpool's quadruple chances. They won their final game, so both the top 2 did all they can. And with the relegation picture, that I think was one of the biggest stories of the day, alongside Manchester City's comeback, where Leeds started the final day in 18th in the relegation zone, a rare away win against a pretty decent Brentford team, and Burnley losing at Turf Moor against a rejuvenated Newcastle saw Burnley return back to the Championship for the first time in 6 seasons. Let me know, guys, of your reaction to the Premier League final day in the comments down below. But today, I'm going to use this time just to see how wrong I was in terms of predicting the table. If you guys like what you see, please give the video a like. It does tremendously help the channel. Let's aim for about 20 likes. That will be terrifically appreciated. Please also hit the subscribe button if you've not done so. It does really help the growth of this channel. And please share this channel to as many people as you can as well. All of that really helps too. But without any further ado, let's start going through one by one what I got right and what I got wrong in the Premier League table. So guys, on the left hand side of the screen is the official Premier League 21-22 table. So that was the official table. Now let's actually reveal what was my actual table at the start of the season. Let's start off with the bottom 3. So the bottom 3, we got a solid 2 out of 3. So I predicted Norwich and Watford to be in the bottom 2, which I don't think was an impossible prediction. I think many predictors predicted Norwich and Watford to go straight back down, and we weren't really, given too much of a shock. Both teams changed their managers halfway across the season. Norwich only changing once, with Daniel Farke leaving the job. I mean, Norwich went through a really long losing streak at the start of the season, and it didn't look like they were going to pick up any points anytime soon. Dean Smith rejuvenates things a little bit, got a fantastic victory against Watford, but other than that, it has been pretty poor from Norwich all season. And with Watford, they picked up some great wins along the way. I remember their 4-1 victory over Manchester United when Ranieri was in charge. But I do question why Xisco Munoz was dismissed so soon, because even when he was in charge, I think Watford at the time had 7 points in their first 5 games, which actually, if you look at their points per game, you would be looking at Watford being around where Leeds and maybe where Everton are, just surviving the drop. So I think just once again, erratic decision making from that board of Watford, and I think fans are really going to start growing tired of it. Ranieri was also dismissed, where he did have a small period of where Watford was starting to improve their form, but since they really got into the bottom 3 after the new year, they really did not look like that they were going out of it. And then with 18th place, I predicted Crystal Palace. So I think this was one of the teams that a lot of people predicted a lot of different things for. Palace did not finish in 18th, they finished in 12th. So I got 6 places wrong for that. I'm a bit disappointed in myself for this, because I think I looked at that squad being a really good squad, but I really wasn't sure with Vieira. But clearly, I think they moulded together very, very well. I think Vieira was a very level-headed guy in terms of being, just getting a new sense of direction with the Crystal Palace squad. I think the potential that Crystal Palace squad has got is really, really good. They picked up a win against Manchester United in the final day of the season. They picked up some brilliant results, actually, throughout the season. I've got to say, Crystal Palace never really looked like that they were in any sort of danger, really. I think just if they improved their consistency, I think Crystal Palace could have even improved their season a little bit more. But I think 12th place is a decent achievement. It's an improvement on last season, and I think if they continue with this philosophy, I think Crystal Palace could even improve even further. We'll now reveal them one by one. 17th place, I put down Brentford, which I am proud of me actually saying that they will survive. A lot of creators thought Brentford would go back down. I personally saw this Brentford team, the way they were defensively drilled under Thomas Frank in the Championship last year, I think they would be the best performing Championship team going up, from the Championship in the year before. And they were more than that. If anything, that was a bit too harsh on Brentford. They finished in 13th. And what really helped Brentford is that they had a pretty good start to the season. They beat Arsenal in the opening day of the season. And I thought, as soon as I saw that, I'm thinking, maybe Brentford are more suited to the Premier League than we thought. Obviously, it was when they were using their new stadium. So I think that's why I put them down. Maybe not as high as they probably thought I could have, because I thought it would take them a bit of time to get used to it. Obviously, having fans back as well. But Brentford did really, really well. They really did well. They had one period in around November, December time where they went through 6 defeats in a row, which I was a bit worried about them. But I think the signing of Christian Eriksen in the January transfer window has definitely given Brentford a new lease of life. And I think now, when you've got that quality set-piece taker in your disposal, I think Brentford can potentially push on. Second season syndrome is going to be interesting if Brentford are going to possess that. So I think I'm still going to try and hold my judgments on what I'm going to think Brentford are going to achieve next year. But I think with the squad players they've definitely got all the right ingredients to stay in the Premier League for a good number of seasons. So in 16th place, I put down Southampton, and I am not too disappointed with that because Southampton ultimately finished 15th. So I'm one place wrong with them. And Southampton, it's just been a very typical Southampton season. They started the year actually really, really well with their form. They were actually really pushing that top half in the Premier League. But then it's always the turn of the year where they start to drop their form again. I remembered watching them live when they lost 2-0 to now relegated Burnley, and they were very poor. I do think next year it's just going to be more of the same, but Southampton are not necessarily progressing anywhere. Right at the start when they were promoted from the Championship, nearly 10 years ago now, they were pushing right up there in terms of even the top 8 or something, at a period of time when they had Pochettino and Claude Puel. But now that's not really been the case for Southampton anymore. Since then, they've really been lingering down a low mid-table position. And is their luck going to run out pretty soon? I can only hope for Southampton fans' sakes that they doesn't. But Adam Armstrong didn't really fit this team at all, really. Their signings I don't think were particularly great. Broja had a bit of potential there, but still I don't think long-term he's going to be Southampton's answer. So I definitely think investment's going to be needed, and I think that is what may hold Southampton back for next year. But I do think with the squad that they do have in their disposal, I think it's slightly good enough, but how long are fans going to accept, this mediocrity in terms of the positions that they are finishing? For 15th place, I predicted Brighton. So I was a little bit wrong with Brighton, and I think the biggest reason is that Brighton, despite last year having a brilliant XG, would always find a way to not finish above 15th place. This season was pretty much the first season where I think we're starting to see the potential for what this Brighton team can do with Graham Potter. I've loved the new players getting into the squad and really making things tick as well. I like what Welbeck has done going forward. I like Cucurella, what he's done at fullback there. I think he's been one of the players of the season there. There's been so many players that I think have improved as well. Bissouma continues to be a really talented player in that defensive midfield position as well. Brighton by far with their best points total and their best finish in the league, finishing in 9th place, a top half finish. This reminds me when Bournemouth finished in 9th with Eddie Howe, I think. Obviously after that season, Bournemouth started dropping down the table, but I really do not see Brighton being that team. I think Graham Potter is a very underrated manager. I think he's definitely got the right philosophy. Unless Brighton lose a lot of their players to, I would quote unquote say, bigger clubs, then I think Brighton could have a bit of a slump. But with their XG, I think they are starting now to get the confidence. They're starting to build a well-organised team that can defend, but can also start taking their chances. Had they not had that really poor form actually at home, especially in the turn of the year in January when they lost 6 in a row, I think Brighton could have even pushed up to 8th, maybe even 7th if things went to their way. So in 14th place is the final relegated team. I predicted Burnley to finish 14th. I've got to say, it really could have been worse. I really could have predicted Burnley to finish in around the top half. I think what I should have looked at was Burnley narrowly surviving last season with 37 points. And I did maybe look at that thinking that they weren't really going to be up in top 10, because there was quite a few people who I think were predicting Burnley to be around this 12th, 10th place position, but I didn't think so. But I could not have really predicted, well, for a start, Chris Wood leaving. So he left in January to join Newcastle, where there's a whole lot I didn't predict for them having new ownership for a start, and then, you know, being able to take Chris Wood off of them. And he's not really done too much for Newcastle, but losing a player like him, I think, really did affect the squad. And Sean Dyche and Burnley in general, you know, what they tend to do, they do tend to have a poor start sometimes, and then they start to reclaim that form. But Burnley never really looked like that they were going to get that form, unfortunately. They did sack Sean Dyche, which a lot of people are saying is the reason why they went down. With Michael Jackson in charge, Burnley had their best form. They had 3 wins in a row, and that streak actually gave them a really good chance in the end. But the fact that Burnley were this close to surviving in the position that they were in the start of the new year is quite amazing. But they are back to the Championship for the first time in 6 years. It's definitely not a good time for them to be relegated as well. They've got a lot of loans to repay as well. A lot of debt that they've got to try and deal with. So it could be a pretty tough season next year for Burnley back down to the Championship. There's going to have to be a lot of players they can sell. I think the one positive for Burnley is that I think they can get some great value of players for the likes of Pope, Weghorst, Cornet, Collins. I think they could get up to 60, 70 million from that. And I think by that time, they'll soon start repaying all those debts. And then with that, they can use younger, talented players, probably likes the Charlie Taylor, who could stay at the club as well. So I do think their squad can be good enough to get out of the Championship, but it's definitely not going to be an easy ride. And Burnley, I mean, it's going to be interesting with the amount of derbies they've got. I mean, we've got Wigan, Preston, Blackpool, Blackburn, all those teams in the Championship. Lancashire next year is going to be absolutely insane with its derbies. Speaking of Newcastle, I predicted them to finish in 13th place. I was only 2 positions wrong, as they finished in 11th. I've got to say, at the start of the season, I was looking like a right idiot there, you know, especially with Steve Bruce still in charge, Mike Ashley still in charge. But I've got to say, I think had the takeover happened later in the season, I think I would have got 13th place spot on. I mean, to be fair, Newcastle only 3 points ahead of 13th place Burnley, so I really was not far away from getting this team right. I think mid-table, what I think was the best prediction I could have predicted. 11th place, fair play to Newcastle. And I've got to say, with their form in 2022, for the fact that they, I think, have picked up the 5th, or actually the 4th most points in 2022 out of all the teams in the Premier League, they could be a really good team next year. And I think it's definitely going to be very interesting what position I'm going to predict Newcastle to finish in 2023. It's definitely going to be, I think, the trickiest team to predict next year, with new ownership, new money in their disposal, new manager, new identity, new amount of confidence. Newcastle is only going one way, and that is up. So I think Newcastle fans definitely have deserved this, you know, with the pain that they've had with Mike Ashley for a long time. But it's going to be very interesting to see if it's going to be a real trajectory, like up to top 4, or it's going to have to be like with a couple of seasons they can start picking their places up the table. So it's going to be very difficult to predict, but fair play to Newcastle, because based on the start of the season, predicting you in 11, I would have given you no chance. So fair play to Newcastle and Eddie Howe and the squad players for managing to get that brilliant form in 2022 to get to that position. In 12th place, I predicted Wolves. Once again, I was really close to getting this right. They finished in 10th place, only 3 points ahead of 12th place Crystal Palace. So I'm getting really close to these predictions. What I will say, I'm not going to actually give myself too much credit with this. The reason being is that I think I was a bit fortunate that Wolves nearly got to my position, because based on most of this season, Wolves picked up some really good results. They picked up some brilliant wins. We couldn't beat Wolves. Chelsea managed to draw against Wolves twice this year. They've been a very difficult team to play up against. And I think part of the reason why I predicted Wolves in 12 is that I wasn't showing Bruno Lage as a manager. And yes, in 2022, Wolves' form has not been great. But on the whole, I think that has been down to injuries and the players that they let go in January, including the likes of Traore. So I think next year, Wolves, unless they don't invest in some players, I think they will improve on this. I think Lage as a manager, he's not like the most charismatic managers. He's someone who's easily going to be forgotten about. But I definitely think he's definitely done a decent job of himself. He had big shoes to fill with Nuno Espirito Santo leaving Wolverhampton Wanderers to join Spurs at the time. So the fact he managed to steady the ship and he got Wolves managing to get up there eventually, because there was a period where they were down there but they weren't scoring enough goals. They managed to keep a lot of clean sheets, Wolves, and then they started to go up the table. So, with a very changed squad, new manager, but still a decent position for Wolves. And finally for 11, and I'm so annoyed at this, I predicted West Ham to finish in 11th place. I gotta say, I always underestimate West Ham. You know, in Europa League for a start, I knew that they were going to go quite far in that competition. I can't remember where I thought West Ham were going to be right at the start of the season, but I should have expected that they still would get some consistency in. The fact they beat Chelsea, Liverpool at the London Stadium is that, you know, you should give them a lot of credit. And they were a little bit unfortunate not to get 6th place in Europa League in the end. They finished 7th in the end and will be getting Conference League next year, you know, finishing on 56 points. So, bit unlucky for West Ham, but poor for me. I've got them 4 positions wrong. Definitely should have not underestimated the job that David Moyes and what kind of squad he's built, because that squad, unless they lose the likes of Souček or Rice or an Antonio or a Benrahma or a Bowen, let's say, you know, I think those 5 players really make the squad really special. If they lose any of them, it could be a pretty difficult year, but if they keep all of them, I think West Ham will just continue to defy the odds and really push and try and be up there within the top 6. So that was the bottom half of the table. Not too bad, you know, 2 correct positions, although they were quite predictable positions. Let's hope it doesn't get too bad. In the next 2 positions, it's not turned out to be great. I predicted Everton and Leeds to be 10th and 9th place respectively. They've both been so bad. I think they've both been my worst 2 predictions, so I'm going to include them together here. I mean, Everton 10th, there's so much wrong with that. I can't even just explain it. So I clearly thought that Everton were going to be not like right up there, but still decentish with Rafa Benitez in charge. He did, to be fair, Benitez had a good start with Everton, but then the wheels fell off so quickly and he really could not deal with that pressure at all. I should have anticipated that Everton would have been finishing a lot lower than what they did last year with Benitez in charge. Then they got Lampard in, and then the squad just had this toxicity. The signings they brought in didn't look very inspiring signings at the start, but then right when the pressure was on them, they delivered and got wins at Goodison against Man United and Chelsea. Great wins also against Leicester and Crystal Palace, going from 2-0 down to win 3-2. And ultimately, those 4 results have kept Everton in the league. But with 39 points, I think is right up there for their lowest points return in this modern Premier League era. The closest they've been to getting relegated as well for quite a huge number of years as well, especially pre-David Moyes era as well. So Everton, it's been a really tragic season, that's all I can say. And they've definitely got to be very careful in approaching next season as well, especially if they do give Lampard the job. And with Leeds 9th, I am so annoyed myself because I think I got pressured by a lot of people who do support Leeds United, who do watch my video. And I should have given them, you know, I should have not been biased with that, really. I should have been realistic, because I think in my mind, I was thinking Leeds will probably be around 12th, 13th. I mean, I know they didn't finish 12th, 13th. But in my original mind, because I remember this, that I think they will have second season syndrome, but then pull it off near the end. But I don't know. I lived up to the hype of Leeds and listened to the fan base, and I shouldn't have in the end of it. They managed to push me to finish Leeds in 9th place, and it's my worst prediction by a long shot, getting them by 8 wrongful positions. In 8th place, I predicted Aston Villa. I was very shocked with this, especially thinking at that time Dean Smith would have still been in charge of Aston Villa. They had a decent season, Aston Villa, last year, but compared to the other teams that I had right up there, I'm very shocked I gave Aston Villa pretty much the best of the rest position. So they had a pretty inconsistent start to the season, not looking like that they were going to get relegated, but they were around 15th, 14th place when Dean Smith got sacked. Steven Gerrard got in and had a brilliant start with Aston Villa, but then the form did slightly dip a little bit. I think they have improved. I think defensively they've been a lot better with Steven Gerrard in charge as well. And I think given a full season for next year, I think Steven Gerrard will start to improve things with Aston Villa. But I can't believe I'm predicting them to finish in 8th place. So it's another 6 wrongful positions as well. So we've now made it to the top 7. 7th place, I predicted Spurs. I mean, with Nuno Espirito Santo, yes, they probably would have finished 7th. I think had Espirito Santo stayed at Spurs a bit longer, I think they would have got 7th place in my opinion. But Levy was definitely ruthless with his decision, got rid of Santo after they lost 3-0 to Manchester United. And then, who would have thought for me that Antonio Conte would return to London and go to Spurs? I mean, another former Chelsea manager going to Spurs really does break my heart. But I gotta say, he definitely had a really poor time at the beginning with them as well. But with his January signings, I think they've been really good. Kulusevski, Bentancur, who both were really good yesterday with Spurs beating Norwich by 5-0. I think the likes of Son and Kane also get very underrated as well for the fact that they're not in the top 2 best teams in Man City and Liverpool. I think those two are also really good for the fact they produce that quality year in, year out. I think both deserve a lot of credit. And Spurs are back in the top 4. So they will look at this season as a great improvement. And I think with Conte, give him a full season, they could be starting to go back to where they were in their peak years with Mauricio Pochettino. So now to the top 6. 6th place, I predicted Leicester, which I'm not sure why I predicted Leicester to finish as high as they did. I think they had 2 consecutive 5th place finishes and they've just been missing out from that. But this season, you know, they've been actually dropping out of Europa League to the Conference League. They didn't manage to win the Conference League in the end of it, getting knocked out in the semi-final by Roma. But this season, they've been a bit below par for me. They finished 8th place. I think the European competitions played a big part of it. They did have a big amount of injury problems as well. They've just really struggled to find that same consistency. Normally they have a great run and then they struggle at the start of the year, or the new year I should say. They never really had that great start really. It's been very static, their run of form. It's been quite inconsistent, so hence why they've dropped a couple of places down to 8th. Maybe a bit fortunate they finished 8th as well. You know, they were quite a fair few points behind Wolves at one stage, but a good, decentish run of form with them beating Southampton on the final day and drawing to Chelsea recently as well. They've managed to clinch 8th place in the end, but it definitely could have been a lot worse for Leicester. We've now made it to 5th place, and I'm relieved I've got another prediction correct other than the very predictable bottom 2. I predicted Arsenal to finish 5th. Now, I'm actually quite proud of that because I think Arsenal was a very difficult team to predict this year with no European football. How they're going to cope with another full season with Arteta, with new players, especially more youthful now. There's definitely a lot more young players going through as well, with a couple of new transfers as well. I think I felt that Arsenal still lacked that experience to get up there. I think still quality-wise, especially in that midfield and defensive area, it's just not good enough to be top 4. That's just my opinion. They definitely need a lot, and I'm not even exaggerating, a lot of change to get into that top 4 place. I know they were pretty close in the end of it. You know, there was a really, stage that they should have really got top 4 away from Spurs. But 3 defeats in a row, like what they had at the start of the season, had ultimately, halted their chances of getting top 4 in the end of it. And they end this season on 69 points, which is an improvement. It is a couple of places improvement for them, so they can see it as a small positive. But with having no European football, they should have looked at this season as a big opportunity. So I can't help but feel it's also good, but it's also bad. So I think it's been a real in-the-middle season for Arsenal there. In 4th place, I'm really embarrassed by this, but I predicted Liverpool 4th. Do I have a vendetta against Liverpool or something? I swear. I never predict Liverpool to finish that high up the table, to be honest. But I don't know. I know last year they definitely struggled a little bit more, but that's because of their injury problems. Should I remember for what this team can do when they've got everyone fit? Liverpool, right at the start, they weren't definitely as good at the start of the year as they ended it. I mean, their form at the end of the year was incredible, really. The fact that they were on the cusp of getting a quadruple, they're now no longer going to get it because Man City have won the title of them. But there was a real scary stage that most fans were feeling that Liverpool could get it. Despite any injuries they have in their defence or their attack, they would have great options. Their recruitment has just been sublime. Getting Luis Diaz in January and just having the impact and how quickly he's impacted that team as well. Their recruitment has been on point, and that is why Liverpool are going to be a very difficult team to stop next year. So I can only apologise to Liverpool fans. I definitely should have given more faith to Liverpool. And what I will say, why did I give Manchester United as much faith as I did? They finished in 3rd place. And I don't even think that was when they got Cristiano Ronaldo in that squad either. So I'm even more embarrassed that I predicted them to finish in 3rd place. I should have seen the warning signs of that. You know, they did finish 2nd last season, but it was not like anything that they could be proud about. They were still within a good 12 points behind Manchester City. So it was not an improvement season, really. The reason why Manchester United stayed in 2nd is that their counter-attacking football got some consistency. And the teams, you know, likewise with Chelsea and likewise with Liverpool, both had injury problems, and, you know, they won't be able to compete with them. Spurs and Arsenal have even improved from them as well. So it's been a really embarrassing season for Manchester United. A 0-goal difference and ending the season on 58 points. That is nearly as bad as when Chelsea finished 10th. Because I think we finished on 56 points in that season. So that should give you a really good idea how much of a bad season Man United have had. They've now got Ten Hag in charge. Things really got to start fresh from there. Otherwise, Manchester United, if they're not careful, if they keep the same egotistical people that they have in their squad, they will only go one way, and that is further down the table. So 2nd place, probably a bit of bias there. I predicted Chelsea to finish 2nd. I gotta say, this season really does hurt. It really hurts. It's, you know, not quite a trophyless season since we've won the Club World Cup, of course, and the UEFA Super Cup. But it really could have been a bigger season than what it was. Losing a Carabao Cup and an FA Cup final to penalties to Liverpool as well, both times. Oh my days. Had we won at least one of those trophies, it really would have seen as a better season for us, really. We had a brilliant start. We were top in the league by around Christmas time, averaging around 2 points a game. And then our form in January has been pathetic, I've got to be honest. And it's not been as bad as United, but we've had some egotistical people in our squad as well, running down their contracts, not bothering at times either. It's just, we definitely need a lot of recruitment. There's going to be, I'm anticipating a huge clear out in Chelsea. New ownership as well. That definitely did not help things at all. We couldn't have predicted what would happen with that as well. So I'm not going to say that this season is an excuse for us to only have those 2 trophies as I previously mentioned. But what I will say, very fine margins have really left Chelsea behind for what could have been a pretty decent season for what a lot of people were predicting. But we've just fallen short. And naturally, that is a mentality thing that Chelsea definitely need to try and address for next season. Next thing, you know, just not only getting new players in, new mentality to keep that consistency, because it's so common now that we start well and we collapse in New Year. We need to really find a way to get that consistency now. I'm tired of it personally. And then finally, the team that did win the league was Man City, which I did predict. So that means I got 4 correct positions, which honestly is not that bad. It is 20% of the positions, so I will take it. I personally will take that. It's much better than what I've done previously in my other table predictions as well. So I don't think it was too bad. Manchester City at a time, they had to really work hard for it as well to get up there as well. So they definitely were tested, Manchester City, to keep in this top position. Liverpool really gave them a really close race. But ultimately, the experience in that squad, I think, makes things so much different. Of course, the money does help as well for them. Squad depth as well helps. And overall, I do think just narrowly, Man City did deserve to win the league. So guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's video today. How did you think I did with my table predictions in the Premier League? Let me know in the comments down below. What was your best prediction and what was your worst prediction? I'll be very interested to know as well. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please do give the channel a like. It does really help the channel if you do. Please do hit that subscribe button if you've not done so. It does really help the growth of this channel. And please share this channel to as many people as you can. All of that helps the growth of this channel too. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary. It's the end of this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.